What's up, guys? I'm James Withy, and today we're going to talk about why I chose to be a tattooer instead of a fine artist. Okay, so I know it has been a long ass time since I've come out with any videos for you guys. I apologize for that. I got super fucking busy building this new photo studio that I'm standing in right now. Basically the primary function of which is to improve the quality of portfolio pictures of everybody in my tattoo shop. But the secondary function of it is that periodically I'll probably be able to record some YouTube videos in here. So long as the people that work on this side of the shop have a day off, I'll be able to record in here because there is a little bit of noise that comes from the outside pretty close to where I'm standing if those people are working. So sometimes I'm going to be recording in here, sometimes I'm going to be recording in my room that I actually tattoo in, which is where I normally record. But yeah, I feel like it's pretty nice in here. I got some nice sound dampening shit, fucking better lighting setup than what I have over in my room. So expect more videos coming from this area with this sort of setup. Now with that said, let's go ahead and talk about what today's video is going to be about. Basically, I'm going to be discussing the reason why I decided to stay on course and continue my pursuit as a professional tattoo artist rather than deviating from that course and becoming a professional fine artist or oil painter, charcoal illustrator, that sort of thing. That was something that I seriously considered early on in my career, and I'll tell you guys why in a second, but basically the structure of the video is going to go like this. First, I'm going to talk about what led me to the point where I felt like I needed to make that decision in the first place. Then I'm going to talk about the reasons why being a professional oil painter or fine artist seemed like a really great idea to me and like kind of some advantages that that career choice might have had over tattooing. And then I'm going to talk about the reasons why I ended up deciding to become a tattoo artist in the end and stay on course, because there are some advantages that I feel like tattooing has over oil painting and fine art that were very distinctive to me and stood out enough to make me decide to keep on doing this for a living professionally. So let's go ahead and get on with it. So in the beginning, when I first started tattooing, shit was like hella fucking slow, man. Like I had fucking no clientele. I wasn't really doing a whole lot of tattoos, maybe like 1 or 2 tattoos per week. And I was probably making maybe like $1,000 to $1,200 a month. And during that time period, because I had so much free time, I took a lot of classes at a local community college that were like art-related courses. During the course of taking all those classes, it started to get to the point to where I was painting a lot more than I was tattooing and drawing in charcoal a lot more than I was tattooing. And one of my instructors had kind of put it in my head that maybe I should consider becoming a professional fine artist instead of a professional tattooer, because at that point my work was getting pretty fucking good for student work and it looked like I actually might have a chance of being able to do it for a living professionally. And at the time that suggestion really did make a lot of sense to me. I was painting, like I said, a lot more than I was tattooing. I was doing it all the time at home, like in my kitchen. I had a whole bunch of different like panels and canvases and shit all over the fucking place. And I was doing it quite a bit in the tattoo shop in my private room that I had in the shop that I was working in. And I spent probably at least 20 or 30 hours a week painting. So being in a financially difficult position and with a lot of nudges that I was getting from people around me trying to like, you know, encourage me to maybe shift direction and pursue fine art as a profession, I gave it some serious consideration, like I said. And upon like thinking about it more deeply, the reasons for me changing momentum and becoming a fine artist, a lot of them were actually pretty good reasons, a lot of pretty strong reasons for why I might do that. The one that stuck out like first and foremost in my mind was that I was getting better at fine art than I was at tattooing at a faster rate. So, you know, because I was painting so much in comparison to tattooing, my painting skills and fine art skills had actually surpassed my tattooing skills, and it got to the point to where, you know, it looked almost like my tattoos were almost like little kiddie pieces of artwork compared to my fucking paintings, because all the tattoos that I was doing were really small ones. It was like little lick and stick tattoos where all I'm doing is a little like lettering piece or like a little logo or something like that. And all the fine art I was doing in comparison was stuff that was very academic, very realistic, like representational work. A lot of the stuff that I was doing was stuff that I chose to do, so I felt, at least on the surface, that I had like more creative freedom with what I was going to paint. I mean, another advantage that fine art has is that it's the info for getting good at oil painting, which was probably my favorite medium. the info that's out there, like as you know, available resources to teach yourself how to get better is far more vast than the info that's out there on tattooing. I mean, as you guys know, if you're watching this channel, there's really not a whole lot of information about tattooing out there on the internet that helps you improve as an individual without anybody else teaching you. Now, of course, at this point, I had already done my apprenticeship. I had been a professional tattoo artist for 6 to 9 months, but that really wasn't enough. You know, I felt like I wasn't progressing fast enough because I really just didn't know enough about tattooing in comparison to fine art, where I was kind of accumulating like a much larger amount of knowledge because I was learning in an academic setting. Not only that, but it's really hard to practice tattooing and get better at the same pace that you can at fine art, because to get better, you know, as a tattoo artist, you need another person to actually let you tattoo on them. So that person isn't always available, you know, like there's not always somebody that's walking through the door that says, hey, I want to go ahead and get a fucking badass piece that pushes your limits as an artist, that helps you grow. Most of the time early in your career as a tattoo artist, most of the shit you're doing is just little stuff that you think is really, you know, pretty easy, and it's more of a technical exercise rather than pushing yourself conceptually as an artist, if that makes any sense. So, you know, painting, on the other hand, you can fucking do it anywhere you want. You can paint outside, you can paint in your kitchen, you can paint in a fucking, you know, in a private studio, you can paint at any given time, whenever you want to, and there's really very little like requirements as far as having another person there, having a sterile setup, all that different stuff. So it just seemed like a much freer medium to practice professionally, and that was part of what was enticing about it to me. Another reason why I thought that fine art might be a better fit as far as like my career is because early on in my career, like I had this really romantic idea in my mind that my legacy would be fucking solidified. You know, I wanted to be like a legend and shit in the fucking game, and I really felt like longevity of a piece of artwork had a lot to do with that. So what I mean by that is, like with tattooing, we tend to think of it as this really permanent thing, but when it comes to like comparing it to fine art, you know, one person's lifetime, what is it going to be, like 60 years from the point to where they're like 20 years old or something getting a tattoo, they live until they're 80, that piece of artwork lasts 60 years. That ain't shit compared to how long a fucking oil painting lasts. Oil paintings, if they're, you know, taken care of properly and they're varnished and protected, I mean, we've all seen them in museums where these oil paintings will be 400 or 500 years old and they'll still look pretty good. You know, I mean, they might not look exactly the same as they did when they were first done because some pigments are more fugitive than others, but I definitely feel like they last many, many times longer than a tattoo does. So I really loved the idea of like somebody else being able to look at my artwork long after I was dead. And for some reason that mattered a lot more to me early in my career than it does now. But back then it seemed like a really cool thing to me that it would last way longer than what a tattoo would. The last reason, and probably the most important in my mind, for why I was considering becoming a professional oil painter or a fine artist instead of a tattooer, is that I personally believe that oils as a medium is a stronger medium than tattooing is in terms of what's possible within that medium and what's not possible. And what I mean by that is tattooing has a lot of limitations that just don't exist in other fine art media, especially oils or like digital art or something like that. With regards to oils, like one really great example of that is like pigments, right? Pigments in tattooing have to be safe to exist in the human body for long periods of time without getting the person sick or causing some sort of illness, health problem, or whatever. A good example of that is cadmium red. Cadmium red is one of the most common pigments in oil painting. It's the brightest, most intense red that you can possibly get. And, you know, there's a lot of other reds that are manufactured to, you know, kind of be a substitute for that red, but none of them are quite as bright. And if you know anything about oil painting, you know that nothing replaces cadmium red. Cadmium red, however, is a heavy metal, so it is a toxic substance that cannot be ingested by human beings. You can't drink the shit, you can't eat the shit, you can't fucking put it under your skin. Most definitely you can't do that. Otherwise it's probably going to get somebody very sick and cause some really adverse skin reactions. So because of that, you know, in tattooing we can never have a bright red that's quite as bright as what there is in oil painting. And not only that, but I mean, that's just one example, you know, like any pigment that exists under the skin is going to be affected by the appearance of that skin. So you're always going to lose a little bit of intensity with any pigment that you put under the skin in comparison to oils. And with oils you can build up quite a bit more layers. You know, you can work on a canvas almost infinitely before it starts getting weird textures and lumpy mounds and shit. Way more than you could in the skin because the skin can only take so much punishment. So the fact that it's, you know, it's artwork that's on a living being, like limits it quite a bit when you know, compared to oil paints. And not only that way, but other ways too, like probably size is another really big one. In tattooing, the size of the piece of artwork that we can create is directly limited by the size of the individual that we're working on. And even the largest person, size-wise, couldn't possibly compare to the largest paintings that you could make with oils or even other artistic media such as acrylics or something like that. So like a really great example of that is the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo, where he made a giant fresco on the fucking ceiling of you know, this cathedral. There's just no way that you could create a piece of artwork in tattooing that's the same magnitude as that. I mean, that took him fucking multiple decades to complete. It is a legendary piece of artwork that is just not possible within a medium such as tattooing. So those are a couple of reasons why I think that oils overall is like a more powerful medium than tattooing and has less limitations than tattooing. And I really seriously considered those when I was making my decision on whether or not I wanted to stay a tattoo artist or pursue oil painting as a profession. So as you can see, there are some strong reasons why somebody that is looking to be a professional artist might consider being a fine artist over being a tattooer. Obviously, I ended up choosing to be a tattooer after ruminating on the subject for quite a bit. I deeply thought about like all the different reasons why I love tattooing and all the different reasons why I love oil painting, and I weighed both career options, you know, very seriously in my mind before I ended up deciding in the end to stay a tattooer. And the reasons why I ended up becoming a tattooer, or actually staying on the course of being a tattooer instead of pursuing oil painting as a career, are many, and I'll go ahead and list them for you. The first reason that stuck out to me when I was thinking of all the reasons why I might want to stay a tattoo artist instead of becoming a professional fine artist is the social aspect of tattooing. It's something that I absolutely love. It's something that I feel like is a little bit lacking in the fine art world. Like, of course, you can probably socialize with like models and shit that you fucking paint or draw, or you can, you know, attend workshops or maybe even teach seminars if you're in like at an advanced stage in your career and talk to other artists that way. But I feel like tattooing is much more social because you literally always have to have another person with you while you're partaking in this activity. And not only that, but it's a much more like personal thing. You know, if you're permanently marking somebody's body and you're sitting there and talking with them over the course of, I don't know, like a 40-hour fucking sleeve project, you're gonna get to know them quite a bit. And I love my clients. I feel like I tattoo really cool people, and it would be hard for me to imagine giving that up to be a professional oil painter where like the majority of the time I'm probably going to be sitting there in my kitchen in my underwear like a fucking creep just pushing around mud on a canvas with a paintbrush, you know? Not only that, but permanently marking somebody as far as, you know, tattoos go, I feel like the way that people enjoy my art as a tattoo artist is a more powerful way to appreciate the art than it would be if somebody had bought an oil painting from me and enjoyed it like just hanging up on their wall, you know, above their couch in their living room or some shit. You know, like for instance, if I fucking sell a painting for 15 grand to some rich dude, you know, and he puts that in his fucking mansion and he has his painting hanging up right there, like he might think it's really dope and he might be stoked on it at first, but after a while, you know, he walks past it 100 times, it's probably going to lose a little bit of its luster as a piece of artwork that he's really excited about. And most likely it's just going to end up like kind of blending into the rest of the decor in his place, and that painting will be largely forgotten about and nobody will ever see it except for people that come over to his crib. If he's not very social, then that's not a lot of fucking people enjoying my artwork, and for some reason I have this desire for the artwork that I've created to be seen. Now, you know, to contrast that, if I do like a really awesome tattoo on some chick and she fucking looks at it every day in the mirror and she thinks, damn, this fucking tattoo is dope, it's a part of me, it's on me, like, you know, she might really appreciate it quite a bit because she feels like it enhances her appearance and it's become a part of her persona, like who she identifies as a person. I feel like that's much more powerful, you know, for me as an artist to kind of imagine people enjoying it in that way. It's a much more personal way of enjoying it because I'm giving them that gift that they have to take around with them everywhere, and they're going to have until the day they die. Not only that, but much more people just in general are probably going to view it, especially if it's in a visible area. You know, if it's on their arm or like their thigh or, you know, leg or something like that, and they're wearing shorts or like a short sleeve shirt, everybody's going to see it everywhere they go, and they're going to get, you know, some enjoyment out of my artwork too. Strangers that I don't even know will view it every day, and I like the idea of that quite a bit. Another reason that was a major one in my decision-making process is that after carefully like kind of thinking about the way that somebody's career goes in the tattoo world and the way that somebody's career goes in the fine art world on average, I personally feel like the tattoo world is much more proportionate in terms of how much reward somebody gets as a tattoo artist compared to how much work they put in and how much skill level they gain. What I mean by that is that in the tattoo world, you'll never see a tattoo artist, well, maybe I shouldn't say the word never because there are a few exceptions to this, but there are very few tattoo artists out there that suck at tattooing that are getting paid a fuckload of money for it. And, you know, that kind of should be like a no-brainer, you know, like the better you are at something, the more money you should get paid for it. But I really have to kind of put it out there in a really blatant way. I feel like in the tattoo world, most people that are getting paid really nasty are people that are fucking super elite and really good at tattooing, and they worked their asses off to get there, and they're getting exactly what they deserve. That's pretty common in the tattoo world. In the fine art world, it's not the same. I feel like I've met a lot of different fine artists that are really fucking good at whatever they do, whatever artistic medium they practice, and they end up being broke as fuck and having to take on a second job just because for some reason they're not getting any recognition or not making enough sales or whatever it is. And I almost feel like a lot of that has to do with, like, I don't know, marketing or luck, or like maybe, you know, in the fine art world you got to create some weird ass fucking persona. Like, it kind of stuck out to me once when I was at the fucking museum, at the Phoenix Art Museum, and I saw an exhibition they had going on with a bunch of shitty ass paintings that were like abstract expressionism, like Jackson Pollock, stupid ass shit just like splashed all over the fucking canvas, right? And I went over to an exhibition and I saw this lady standing in front of a shitty painting, and she was explaining why the painting was good to all the people that were like gathered around her. And this image is just burnt in my fucking mind because at the time I remember thinking, if the painting is so good, then why the fuck do you have to use words to explain why this image is so great? Like, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Why are you standing in front of it and basically selling it to everybody in terms of why it's so good? And it kind of dawned on me that there's a fuckload of that going on in the art world, where there's a lot of shitty artists that are selling paintings for like tens of thousands of dollars, maybe 50 grand, 100 grand, that look like children made them. And those people are getting paid more than some other fine artists that are out there that are way more technically skilled and worked way harder to get good at what they actually do, rather than just creating some cool persona to like market themselves and convince galleries to represent them and make it so that they can fucking, you know, get paid a lot of money because the galleries, you know, convince these rich people that don't know anything about art that this is what they should buy and this is what they should enjoy looking at or whatever. Like, it just seems like a really big scam to me, like, on one side of it. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of fine artists out there that are getting exactly what they deserve for working hard. You know, I've met some fucking phenomenal oil painters out there that are way more technically skilled than the best tattoo artists in the world, like David Casson, for instance. That dude is one of the best fucking portrait oil painters in the world. I've met him a couple times. He's a fucking awesome guy, and he's getting exactly what he deserves as far as his recognition in the fine art world. He will go down as a legend. But in my opinion, I feel like he's the exception of the rule, and there's a lot of guys, you know, both contemporary that are still alive, and within the past 200 years, there's a lot of guys and girls that probably shouldn't have fucking been, you know, recognized to the extent that they are, and they shouldn't be selling paintings to the extent that they are. And meanwhile, there's other artists that are actually good that are fucking starving and having to take on second jobs or sell their paintings at a discounted price or teach or whatever the fuck it is, even though that's not what they want to do. There's just a lot of that shit going on in the fine art world. And seeing all that kind of like highlighted the fact that to be successful in the fine art world requires a great degree of luck when compared to the tattoo world. And me personally, I do not like to leave anything up to chance as far as my fate goes. I like to be able to plan what I'm doing. I like to be able to, you know, take very calculated steps in how I'm progressing myself as a person in my career, professionally, all those different things. Whenever I can like subtract the variable of luck or chance out of the equation, I do so. And I feel like becoming a professional tattoo artist instead of a fine artist definitely helped to kind of suppress the amount of influence that luck or chance would have over my personal situation. The final reason for why I decided to stay the course with tattooing instead of fine art is because of timing. Right now, tattooing is on a giant upswing. There's a tremendous amount of momentum being built in the tattoo world because we're just starting to scratch the surface and find out what's possible within this medium right now. And everybody's kind of getting excited about it. You know, I know that tattoos today, they look definitely quite a bit better than what they did 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. And I honestly still feel like it hasn't peaked as far as us realizing our full potential of what's possible within this medium. And you know, with tattoos becoming more socially acceptable all over the world, not only the US, but you know, countries abroad too, I feel like there's more people getting tattooed right now than there ever has been in the past. And so we're kind of building towards our peak. Whereas, you know, oil painting or just painting in general, the peak for that already happened 400 or 500 years ago during the High Renaissance and Dutch Renaissance. And honestly, ever since then, in general, the skill level of artists that practice that medium has been on a steady decline. You know, there's people that stand out, like I mentioned earlier, like David Casson or Michelle Dunaway, Casey Baugh, Greg Crayola Simpkins. There's people like that that are amazing artists in this day and age that practice with oils or acrylics, and you know, they're fucking really stomping a mud hole in that medium and doing a great job of making some amazing paintings, but they are the exception and not the rule. And me personally, I would rather hop in on something like tattooing that's kind of on the upswing, where I have like the possibility to cement my legacy like in a new way, than get involved in something that in my opinion has been fizzling out for quite a while now. You know, tattooing obviously has its own problems when compared to fine art, like particularly originality, but I feel like over the next few decades we're going to be working out a lot of those kinks, and tattooing is going to become, you know, probably the favored medium like overall in terms of popularity, and you know, along with that also comes some financial gain too. So that's about it for this video, guys. What we've covered today is what exactly led me up to the point where I felt like I needed to make a decision between being a professional tattoo artist and being a professional fine artist. We've also talked about some of the advantages that fine art, particularly oil painting, has over tattooing as a medium and as a career. And we've also talked about some of the advantages that tattooing has over oil painting or fine art as a career as well. So as far as whether or not I'm happy with my decision, I would say absolutely. I fucking am super stoked on the way my career has gone over the past 6 years that I've been a professional tattoo artist. And if I had to make the decision all over again, I definitely wouldn't do anything different. It's been a really fucking awesome ride for me. So, you know, one thing worth mentioning is that if you guys are aspiring artists and you want to become professionals, and you're like taking fine art classes or maybe considering becoming like an illustrator or an oil painter or something like that, I would strongly advise that you seriously consider becoming a tattoo artist, because honestly, like, there is just so much reward in this career and it's such a fun lifestyle. It's really difficult to get into tattooing. It's difficult to convince somebody to teach you, and it's also difficult to get good at. I mean, in my opinion, tattooing is probably fucking the hardest medium that I've ever practiced, and I've done a shit ton of them. But like I said, it is very rewarding if you end up getting to the light at the end of that tunnel. So if you guys have any other questions about, you know, this as a career choice, feel free to leave those questions in the comments below. As far as how to get an apprenticeship and how to become a professional tattoo artist, that is a whole separate video that I'm probably going to cover in detail, but I'll try to get that up as soon as possible for you guys. If you liked the video, please hit the like button below. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a nice day. See ya.